As I said in part 1, I am a fan of arachnids, mainly spiders. But what if there was a Pokemon that was a spider that could conduct electricity? Well, there is, and it's Galvantula. When I first saw Galvantula, I immediately liked its design, but I didn't get to use one until Pokemon Black and White 2, where it was one of the best members of my team. Galvantula destroyed tons of trainers and bosses Pokemon with its powerful special attacks like Signal Beam and Electro Ball, which were backed up by its decently high special attack stat and speed. Galvantula was a big help, especially against Grimsley. I also really like Galvantula's name, which is a combination of galvanism, which is a contraction of a muscle through electrical currents, and tarantula. Galvantula may not look threatening, but with the right moves and the fact that it's only weak to fire and rock, will definitely change that. If you watched part 1, then you would know that there have been several Pokemon I find underrated on this list. But the next Pokemon on this list is a Pokemon I find highly underrated. Aggron. Why do so many people just look past Aggron without a second thought? I mean, it looks like a metal Godzilla monster. Aggron is insanely strong with a base defense stat of 180, as well as a base attack stat of 110. Just through leveling up, Aggron can learn some really powerful moves, and Aggron can learn a wide variety of moves through the use of TMs. Aggron does have a times 4 weakness to fighting and ground, and a weakness to water. I personally think that Aggron's stats and move potential make up for that. Also, when Aggron Mega Evolves, it becomes a pure Steel type, it gets a base defense stat of 230, which rivals Shuckle's, and it gets the Filter ability, which reduces damage from super effective moves by 25%. I think that more people need to use Aggron, because it was one of the best members of my team in Pokemon Emerald. And thank you, Chilla Conroy, for using an Aggron in your team in Pokemon XD. You have no idea how happy that made me. Now, I know this is going to make me sound a bit cheap, but I am a big fan of pseudo-legendaries because of most of their designs and their usefulness in battle. For anyone who doesn't know, a pseudo-legendary is a normal Pokemon that have a base stat total that is almost as high as a legendary Pokemon, and it usually takes its pre-evolution to reach at least level 40 for it to evolve into a pseudo-legendary. I'm of course telling you this because we have reached the first pseudo-legendary on this list, Metagross. Metagross is amazing. Its attack and defense are through the roof, and when it Mega Evolves, all of its stats increase, especially its speed. Metagross can learn some ridiculously powerful moves just by leveling up, such as Zen, Headbutt, Hammer Arm, and even Hyper Beam. Metagross also has the ability Clear Body, which prevents its stats from being decreased by opponents. With the right move, Metagross can destroy anything that isn't legendary or super effective against it. There's nothing else I need to say. I basically said everything about why Metagross is an amazing Pokemon. I can understand why this is Steven's strongest Pokemon. Magnezone. I was kind of a fan of its pre-evolutions Magnemite and Magneton, but I freaking love Magnezone. First off, I love the name, Magnezone. I don't know why, but it just sounds really cool. And speaking of cool, that's the same word I would use to describe Magnezone's design. It looks like a sentient UFO with magnets attached to it. Magnezone has a high special and defense stat, and can learn some of the best electric and steel type moves just from leveling up. Also, Magnezone can have either Magnet Pull or Sturdy for its ability. Magnet Pull prevents Steel-type Pokemon from being switched out, while Sturdy, in recent generations, lets the Pokemon that has it survive with 1 HP if an attack was normally defeated in 1 hit. Amazing against Magnezone's times 4 weakness to ground. Even though it clearly hovers in the air, I never understood that. I highly recommend using a Magnezone, especially since all you have to do is level up a Magneton in a specific location depending on what Pokemon game you're playing. I don't think this is likely to happen, but I hope Magnezone gets a Mega Evolution in the future, because it would definitely benefit from one, but Magnezone is still great on its own. Now, you've probably noticed that there hasn't been a Fire type on this list yet. Well, in all honesty, I'm not that big of a fan of fire types. Mainly because I don't find a lot of the designs interesting. But when there's a fire type I like, I usually really like it. And one Pokemon as an example of this is Chandelure. Chandelure is my second favorite fire type. I love its design of a possessed Chandelure. When I first saw Chandelure, I automatically wanted one. In battle, Chandelure can use very strong Ghost and Fire type moves such as Shadow Ball, Flamethrower, Hex, Flame Burst, and Inferno. It can even learn Energy Ball for any water or rock types that it might unfortunately go up against. Chandelure can either have Flash Fire or Flame Body for its ability, and both are great abilities. Flash Fire boosts the power of Fire type moves if it is hit by one, and Flame Body has a chance of burning the opponent if it hits the Pokemon with a physical move. Also, if you still have any doubts about Chandelure, its special attack stack rivals Mewtwo's. Enough said. But I do have one question to ask. Why does Chandelure have such a weird and unfitting voice in the anime? So now we've made it through halfway through the list, and we've reached the second pseudo-legendary on this list, Salamence. You do not mess with Salamence. Not only does it have a badass and intimidating design, literally because that's intimidate for its ability, and as Chargestone stated in his Pokemon Emerald LP, this thing eats children for breakfast without any milk. If you don't have an ice type or a Pokemon that can attack with an ice type attack, you're gonna have a hard time taking this thing out. Salamence has great stats, with its attack as the highest, with its base attack stat being 135. Salamence can learn some strong Dragon type moves and can learn quite a few non-Dragon type moves such as Flamethrower, Zen Headbutt, Crunch, and even Thunder Fang. And in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Salamence got a Mega Evolution that greatly increases its defense and slightly increases its stats. If you come across a Salamence, use Ice type attacks because it has a 4 times weakness to it. Or use your strongest attacks, otherwise you are in for a lot of trouble. Now for the first 6th gen Pokemon on this list, and one of the fan favorite 6th gen Pokemon, Aegislash. Aegislash is a sword Pokemon. See, this is what I meant in my Thoughtful Minion response video when I said the Gen 6 Pokemon were unique and had a lot of effort put into their designs. Aegislash is unique in that it has 2 forms. Its Blade form on the top left, where its attack and special attack are through the roof, and its Shield form in the bottom right, where its defense and special defense are through the roof. Because of this, Aegislash is ridiculously deadly in Blade form, and Aegislash is the only Pokemon that can learn the move King's Shield, which protects Aegislash with any move except status moves. If used correctly by having Aegislash switch between its 2 forms at the correct time, Aegislash can destroy entire teams of Pokemon, or at least most of them. Also, because of Aegislash's type of Steel and Ghost, its evolutionary line and the Magnemite evolutionary line have the most resistances of any Pokemon, and it is immune to 3 types. Also, Aegislash was designed by Hitoshi Ariga, I apologize if I botched that pronunciation, who is a professional artist that mainly illustrates manga and picture books. Bisharp. Oh yeah, I can say tons of things about why I like this Pokemon, but I'll try to keep things simple. Good news, it has a high attack stat. Even better news, it can only learn physical attacks through leveling up, so every attack it uses is going to do some serious damage, unless it's not very effective. Bisharp was incredibly helpful to my team in Pokemon White 2. It was able to take out so many Pokemon and absolutely destroyed Caitlyn. It takes a while for its pre-evolution Pawniard to evolve into Bisharp, but it is well worth the wait for a Pokemon that has the potential to annihilate bosses. Combine that with a badass design that is based off of Japanese bandits, and the fact that it's a Dark and Steel type, which are both types I'm a fan of, and you definitely have a Pokemon that I really like. You remember earlier when I said Chandelure was my second favorite fire type? Well, now you're about to meet my favorite fire type, Houndoom. Oh, I love that name so much. Houndoom. It makes it sound so threatening, and it fits because Houndoom's design is based off a Hellhound. Houndoom has a high special attack stat with its speed and attack stats shortly behind respectively. Houndoom learns lots of Great Dark and Fire-type moves when leveling up, which can be used to decimate your opponents. I love my Houndoom in Pokemon Soul Silver. It was helpful for defeating a lot of the Elite Four's Pokemon when battling them for the second time. I am also a really big fan of Houndoom's Mega Evolution, which makes it look even more threatening and more like a Hellhound. And it gets Solar Power for its ability, which increases its special attack by 1.5 times, but at the cost of losing 1 of its HP at the end of each turn. But it is still an awesome Mega Evolution. Time for another Dragon type, Hydreigon. Hydreigon requires the highest level for its pre-evolution to evolve, which is level 64. However, like with Bisharp, it is well worth the wait. Hydreigon is a pseudo-legendary. Hydreigon knows some incredibly powerful moves that can take out your Pokemon before you can say, oh shit. If you don't believe me, then watch people use Hydreigon in gameplay videos on YouTube. And Hydreigon has Levitate as its ability, which makes it immune to ground-type moves. Hydreigon also gets bonus points because it's also a dark type, and it has an awesome design of being a dragon with heads on the end of its arms, which is based off of Yamata no Orochi from Japanese mythology. If you want a very strong dragon type, and can be patient enough to get a Zweilous to level 64 and then use a Hydreigon, your efforts will be rewarded. But here's something I want to know. How in the world did Ghetsis get a Hydreigon at level 54? You fucking cheater.